So now we are in the next topic, which is the principle of natural justice in administrative law. So in order to appreciate the principle of natural justice, it is important to understand the concept of justice in the positivistic view and also in the naturalistic view. So as we have already known that positive law is a written law and natural law is a law which ought to be. Now if we see justice under the concept of positive law, then it will mean legality or illegality. For example, that the people have contracted with the government, and this contract is known as the social contract, for which their rights and interests are protected under the contract. Now, there will be terms of the contract which have to be obeyed by the people and by the government. If the people follow the rules of the contract, rules of the social contract, then it is said to be a just action. If the rules of the contract are broken, then the action is then termed to be unjust and hence injustice is being done. When justice adds to itself the naturalistic point of view, then the word fairness comes up. Now, the fairness is discussed by John Rawls, and if the fairness concept is added into the concept of justice, then the result becomes the natural justice. And therefore, we see that there are two main important principles of natural justice, that is, a principle against bias or principle against the interest, and the second principle is to hear the party against whom the authority is deciding. So, no man can be a judge in his own case, and odi ultram partem. One more thing, natural law was understood to be the law of the god for sometimes. So, in one of the English decisions, you will find that the right of being heard has been taken from the example of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were not punished by the God without giving them an opportunity of hearing. First, the God appeared and then asked Adam and Eve what they had to say when they broke the law. Therefore, I mean to say that natural law has given the origin to the principles of natural justice. Whether you take it as the law of the God or whether you take it as the society which asked what ought to be the law. So, when we read justice as fairness, then we find that there are two main principles of natural justice. In India, the principles of natural justice have been taken from the common law. This is a part of the common law. The common law cases which have been taken as the basis of principle of natural justice in India is Local Government Board versus Aldrich and Board of Education versus Rice case. Now these two cases are the very first cases which are referred by the Indian Supreme Court in order to find the principles of natural justice. Also, the court has on many occasions referred to the book by H. Marshall, and the name of the book is Natural Justice, in order to find the components and the application of the natural justice. So, as I said, that the principle of natural justice were having two main components. One is known by the maxim nemo debet esse judex propria causa, and the second one is known as the odi alterum partem. Now, I would request you to note down the word judex, which means the judge, and the translation of this maxim is that no man can be a judge of his own cause. Now, whether this principle will apply to administrative law also is the question. So, a judge simply would mean the judge who is sitting in a court, or any other person can also be equated as a judge. For example, can an administrative official be taken as a judge in certain cases or not. Now, this shift may be understood by the emergence of a third principle of natural justice. So, 1, 2, and 3. So, the third principle of natural justice is that quasi judicial inquiries shall also be done under good faith and without bias, and therefore it shall not be arbitrary or unreasonable. Now, if quasi judicial inquiries are also subject to principles of natural justice, then if there are inquiries which are made under the concepts of administrative law, can the principle of natural justice be applied in the case of administrative law also? Now, I would request you to again refer to the earlier part of the lecture, that the reason or the object of the principle of natural justice is achieving fairness in deciding matters. Now, fairness, if the object is fairness, and there are instances of administrative inquiries, it logically concludes that the fairness quotient shall be added to these inquiries as well, and hence administrative inquiries can be taken as to be similarly placed with quasi judicial inquiries, and therefore it is said that there is a very thin line of difference between quasi judicial inquiries and administrative law inquiries. Now, we will understand this when we will read in the later part of the lecture while we discuss the A.K. Kraipak case. So, the very first case on the principle of natural justice in administrative law is the A.K. Kraipak case. But it is important to study the A.K. Kraipak case together with Ashok Kumar Yadav and the Goa University case. Now, the facts are somewhat similar, therefore, a conjoint reading of the three cases will make the concept much more clearer. So, in the A.K. Kraipak case, the fact was that there was a selection board made, and a member of the selection board was himself appointed for one of the posts. In Ashok Kumar Yadav case, this is the case of Haryana Civil Services, there were relatives of the members of the selection board who were appointed in this case. Now, in the Goa University's case, that a favorite, not a near relation, a favorite of the member of the selection board was appointed for the post of professor. So, the distinction is here in the first case, the member himself is appointed. Number 2, the relative of the member is appointed. And number 3, a favorite of the member is appointed. Why I say favorite? Because there was a letter which was written by one of the members for the candidature for this particular candidate, appraising his features because he was working under such member. So in A.K. Kraipak case, the issue was whether principle of natural justice will apply to administrative decisions or not, and second, and whether there was a breach of the principles of natural justice. Therefore, now we refer to the case. So in the A.K. Kraipak case, this person Nakish Band was the member of the selection board, and he was also selected by the board. So therefore, we find in paragraph 13. Now remember that the selection board was acting under the administrative power. It was not acting under the judicial power. So they were not sitting as judges but as administrative officials. For this, the court says that the dividing line between an administrative power and a quasi-judicial power is quite thin and is being gradually obliterated. So, The court in this case is equating somehow the administrative power to quasi judicial power. Now, quasi judicial power will be exercised by the persons sitting in a tribunal. Further, it says that for determining whether a power is an administrative power or a quasi judicial power, there are some things which have to be taken into context. Number one, they have to take into context the nature of the power which is conferred. Second, the persons on whom it is conferred. Third, and the law which is conferring that power. And lastly, the consequences which result from the exercise of that power. So these are the four parameters in order to find out whether administrative power is a quasi judicial power. The other reason of equating administrative power with quasi judicial power was that in under our constitution, rule of law is the main concept, and due to the concept of welfare state, the administrative bodies which are the instrumentalities of the state have been increasing rapidly. Therefore, if the principles of our constitution is not applied to those instrumentalities, then it would not result in a real appreciation of the concept of rule of law, because it says that even if when the judges are acting under their judicial capacity, they are in essence fulfilling the requirement to act justly and fairly and not arbitrarily and capriciously. So the main context of the exercise of judicial power is to act justly and fairly. Further, it says that the procedures which are considered inherent in the exercise of judicial power are merely those which facilitate, if not ensure, a just and a fair decision. So, what is the judicial exercise of power ensuring? Is the just and fair decisions of the authorities. Further, it says that in recent years, the concept of non judicial power has undergone a radical change. What was considered as administrative power some years back is now considered as a quasi judicial power. Now, why the court is saying this? It is given in paragraph 20. Here, the judgment says that the aims of rules of natural justice is to secure justice, or to put it negatively, to prevent miscarriage of justice. So, in a sense, they are requiring that the aims of rules of natural justice or principles of natural justice is to ensure fairness in the exercise of power. Now, they enlist two main principles of the natural justice. Number one is no one shall be a judge in his own case, and number two, no decision shall be given against a party without affording him a reasonable hearing. So, nemo debet esse judex propria causa and audi alterum partem. Now, they say that a third rule of principle of natural justice has also been added to the above two rules, and that is quasi judicial inquiries must be held in good faith, without bias, and not arbitrarily on or unreasonably. The addition of such a principle, third principle, is because the rules of natural justice is to prevent miscarriage of justice. So the quasi judicial authorities were such authorities which were required by law to act judicially. Now, they were required to act judicially only to ensure fairness. And therefore, it is said in the judgment that if the purpose of the rules of natural justice is to prevent a miscarriage of justice, one fails to see why those rules should be made inapplicable to administrative law. So, if quasi judicial authorities have to act under the principles of natural justice to ensure fairness, why administrative inquiries shall not be subject to the same rule in order to protect the rule of law and in order to ensure constitutionalism under the administrative sphere. It says enquiries which were considered administrative at one time are now being considered as a quasi judicial in character. Arriving at a just decision is the aim of both quasi judicial inquiries as well as administrative inquiries. So, if the reason is to reach a just decision, then there is no categories for differentiating between quasi judicial inquiries and administrative inquiries. So, after we have learned that quasi judicial inquiries can be equated with administrative inquiries, then we will find now whether there is a breach of the principle of natural justice and how that breach of the principle of natural justice have to be found. Now, in the facts of this case, it was stated that the Naqshband did not participate in the deliberations of the committee when his own name was considered. But there was a fact that he was also a party to the preparation list of selected candidates in order of preference. He was also a party when the other candidates' eligibility were discussed, and therefore there was a conflict of interest. So he was himself going to be appointed and he was deciding the fate of the other candidates. So there was a conflict of interest. The court here says that the real question is not whether he himself was biased or not. It is not for the court to find that he was biased or not, because it is very difficult to prove the state of mind of the very person. Therefore, what the court has to find is a reasonable ground for believing. So, this is the test, that the reasonable likelihood or reasonable ground of believing that he was likely to have been biased. So it is not whether he was actually biased, but a reasonable likelihood that he would have been biased. Now, this also has to be differentiated with mere suspicion. Mere suspicion does not mean there is a biasness. There has to be facts and evidences to understand that there was a reasonable likelihood of biasness. In this particular case, the court says that it was in the interest of Naqshband to keep out his rivals in order to secure his position. Naturally, he was also interested in safeguarding his position while preparing the list of candidates. So here there is a more reasonable likelihood that he would be biased for the decision he is going to take. So after A.K. Kraipak case, we come to the Ashok Kumar Yadav case. Now, as I have told you, that some relatives of the members of the selection panel were appointed for the Haryana Civil Services. So the court in this case referred to the A.K. Kraipak case and has made some important observations. In paragraph 16, the court says it's kind of an appreciation of the judgment of A.K. Kraipak's case. The question is not whether the judge is actually biased or he decides partially, but whether there is a real likelihood of bias. This likelihood of bias will come as if there is a reason to create a reasonable apprehension in the minds of others. So, a reasonable apprehension in the minds of others that there is a likelihood of bias will result into the contravention of the principles of natural justice. Now, some important lines. The basic principle underlying this rule is that justice must not only be done but must also appear to be done. Now, in the words of Dicey, that justice must not only be done but also seen to be done. And this is the rule which has been recognized by several courts in several decisions. It is also important to note that this rule is not confined to cases where judicial power in strict sense is exercised. So, fairness is not only the duty of the judges. So, it is said, justice is not the function of the courts alone. It is the duty of all those who are expected to decide fairly between contending parties. So, if there are contending parties, then there are reasons by which you must act fairly. From which factors you will find that there is a likelihood of bias. Now, after the mention of A.K. Kraipak case, it says likelihood of bias may arise on account of proprietary interest or personal reasons, which can be hostility or friendship or family relationship. So these are the factors which may result in likelihood of bias. Especially for the grounds of relationship, the court says that the question would always be as to the close nature of the relationship. That is, the nearness of the relationship so great as to give rise to reasonable apprehension of bias. 18, I would request you to remember the very first statement which I made about the distinction between justice as a legality and justice as fairness. Now you can appreciate this statement of the judge here in this case, that we would not like to whittle down in the slightest measure the vital principle laid down, which has nourished the roots of rule of law and injected justice and fair play into legality. So, justice and fair play may be said to be coming from the naturalistic point of view of law into legality, which can be the positivistic point of law. So, after applying the fair play concept into the legality concept, the court says that a selection committee, if the member of the selection committee is closely related to a candidate, then it is not enough that the member only withdraw from the participation in the interview of that very candidate, but he must also withdraw from the entire selection process and ask the authorities to nominate another person. So, this reasonable apprehension will end if he withdraws altogether from the entire process, and not only by when the withdrawal is only for the closely related candidate. However, the court in this case has referred to an exception. It says, but the situation here is a little different. So the court here is not asking for a complete withdrawal from the entire process. This is based on the doctrine of necessity. Remember the doctrine of necessity. Why? It says, because the selection of candidates to HCS is being made not by a selection committee constituted for that purpose, but it is being done by HPSC, which is a commission set up under Article 316 of a constitution. So this commission is a constitutional authority. When they are the members constituting the Haryana Civil Services Commission, they are not acting as individuals but as public service members of Public Service Commission. Further, it says, of course, we must make it clear that when a close relative of a member of a Public Service Commission is appearing for the interview, such member must withdraw from participation in the interview of that very candidate and not for all others, and must not take part in any discussion in regard to the merits of that very candidate and not of all others, and even the marks or credit given to that candidate should not be disclosed to him. So the court here applies the doctrine of necessity and says when the members were the part of the selection committee, they were not acting as individuals but as a public service commission. There are two more important points to be discussed. Now, the reasonable likelihood of bias can also arise from different factors. Rather than the close relationship of the members, there can be other factors which can give rise to the reasonable likelihood or apprehension of bias of the members of the selection committee towards a candidate. Now, there are certain grounds which were discussed in this case which are important. Now, there were 61 posts which were advertised and 1300 candidates were made to appear. However, the Union Public Service Commission only requires for twice or to a maximum thrice number of candidates to be called for the interview process. Therefore, the court in this case has said that it is indeed difficult to see how a Viva voice test for properly and satisfactorily measuring the personality of candidate can be carried out if over 1300 candidates are to be interviewed for the recruitment of the service. And such a course would widen the area of arbitrariness for even a candidate who is very much lower down in the list on the basis of marks obtained in the written examination can borrow an expression used by the division bench as to gate crash into selection. So, by the higher marks in his interview, he can get selected even scoring less in the other parts of the exam. So, after referring to the Kothari committee report, the court recommended that the Kothari committee report shall be followed, but however did not strike down the selection because it says we do not think that the selection made by the HPSC could be said to be vitiated merely on the ground that as many as 1300 or more candidates representing more than 20 times the number of available vacancies were called for interview. Though on the view taken by us that was not the right course to follow and not more than twice or thrice the number of candidates should have been called for the interview. So the court is saying that they should have called only twice or thrice the number of vacancies, but they could not vitiate the whole process where the selection is made among 1300 candidates. The third ground on which the reasonable likelihood or apprehension of bias can result is the comparison to the marks allocated to the written examination to the proportion of marks allocated to the interview. Now, this ratio was very high. So, the interview marks in this particular examinations were having a more weightage than to the written exam. Therefore, the court said that it is a practice that the weightage of interview is brought down to 12.2% after the recommendations of the Kothari committee, and therefore they recommend that whatever selections are made by Haryana Public Service Commission in the further in future shall be on the basis that the marks allocated for Viva voice test shall not exceed 12% in the case of candidates belonging to general category and 25% in the case of ex-service officers. Nayak versus Goa University, the fact which I have told you earlier, that there was a favorite of a member of the selection board who was appointed. Now, some important observations have been made for this particular case, and I would like to bring your attention to those observations. If you see paragraph 33, so if a member's favorite is appointed, can there always be bias, or there are chances where there is no bias at all? Okay, so in paragraph 33 it says Bias may be generally defined as partiality or preference. It is true that any person or authority required to act in a judicial or quasi judicial matter must act impartially. But the question is, can there ever be a total absence of preconceptions? It says, if that was the ground, then no one has ever had a fair trial and no one ever will. Because the human mind, even at infancy, is no blank piece of paper. We are born with predispositions and the processes of education, which creates attitudes which precedes our reasoning in particular instances, and therefore, by definition, are prejudices. So, we are by nature having a bias, and that is not the bias which becomes a reasonable apprehension of a bias for the purpose of principle of natural justice. It says it is not every kind of bias which in law is taken to vitiate an act. What kind of biases will vitiate an act? It must be a prejudice which is not founded on reason, and it is actuated by self interest, and that self interest can be pecuniary or personal. Further, it says that every preference does not vitiate an action. If it is rational and unaccompanied by considerations of personal interest, pecuniary or otherwise, it would not vitiate the decisions. For the purpose of this case, the court says, for example, if a senior officer expresses appreciation of the work of a junior in a confidential report, it would not amount to bias, nor would it preclude that senior officer from being part of the departmental promotion committee to consider such junior along with others for promotion. So here the prejudice of a member of the selection board is not taken as a bias in the nature of breach of principles of natural justice.